Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the California Association, thank you, California Housing Finance Agency in order. And I would like to have Courtney please call the roll to make sure we have quorum.
Certainly. Ms. Cabildo?
Present.
Chair Cervantes?
Present.
Ms. Kurgan for Secretary Moss?
Present.
Mr. Hardiman?
Present.
Ms. Lamone? Mr. Henning for Treasurer Ma? Mr. Moto? Mr. Prince? Mr. Russell?
Present.
Secretary Sin?
Present.
Mr. Olmsted for Director Velasquez?
Present.
Dr. White?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Present.
Mr. Fano for Director CalHFA? Ms. Peralt? And Director Sertich?
Here.
Chair, we have a quorum.
That's terrific. Thank you very much. Second item on the agenda is the approval of the October 16. The minutes are in the package. I'm sure we all had a chance to review them. And unless there are any modifications or changes, I will look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Dr. Kurgan, thank you. Dr. Williams. Motion is made and seconded. Our protocol is to approve the minutes without a vote if there's a motion made and seconded. So we move on. Thank you. And with that, in terms of my comments, I'd like to start off. This is sort of a meeting of transition, and one of the key transitions is we have a new board member who will meet, I think, at our next meeting. Director Prince, his term was renewed. He's unfortunately not feeling well, and we'll see him in the future. My term was renewed. I just got my re-swearing in thanks to our very capable new executive director. So I'm here legitimately now. But our longtime former board member, Delilah Sotelo, her term's up and she's not back on the board. But I wanted to really note with great appreciation her work on this board, and I think she's with us, I think, on Zoom, and we'll have her in a second. But I really came to greatly appreciate everything that Delilah brought to this organization. Her perspective on housing, framed in her career and development, was really invaluable. She was the chair of our audit committee, which some might view as a thankless task, but critical for the functioning of the organization. And she worked to evolve that to audit and risk management, sort of taking on enterprise risk as part of the purview of that committee, which is really critical for an organization like this when you think of the assets under management, the balance sheet, and all the various issues as a lender, a key lender in the affordable housing space. And Delilah took that on. So as a board member, she was a contributor and then some, which I always appreciated. And I'll add just more on a personal note, at times, just as chair, where I had a question about something or needed a reality check, Delilah was often the person I would call up, because I knew that I could get an honest answer. Well, I didn't get an honest answer from everybody else. Let me reframe this. But Delilah was just thoughtful, and I knew she wouldn't be very just pushing back, probing issues, and I just felt like she was someone I could go to talk through issues. So just on a personal level, as a board chair, she was super helpful, and I think that she's made a huge contribution for the work we do. She does that in her work in the development scene in Los Angeles, and we are fortunate to have her with us on Zoom. She's up on the screen, so I wanted to pause, give Delilah a chance to say a few words to us, and then if some board members would like to add on afterwards, feel free. There may be a time lag with the Zoom function, so just bear that in mind. This may be like the old party lines we used to have. So Delilah, please, with great appreciation that you can join us virtually.
Thank you so much, Chair Cervantes. I really appreciate the opportunity. I have worked so closely with the team at CalHFA, and I just wanted to, really give them my heartfelt and sincere gratitude for all the work that they've done over these years. It is so nice to see the evolution of the organization and to be, firsthand witness to that evolution, from our rating to, our reintroduction into the multifamily space. I also wanted to extend my congratulations to Tony. Tony, it is so nice to see you now at the helm. It's come really a nice full circle, so congratulations on your position. And while I've worked with 4 executive directors, I will not have the pleasure to have worked with you, but in that capacity. But I do remember the great work that you did while you were there beforehand. So I just really wanted the opportunity, and Chair Cervantes, I really wanted to thank you personally, to thank Courtney and all the members of the staff for all the diligence and for all the good work that they've done. The organization has come a long way, and I am immensely proud of the work that we've done as CalHFA to really further the opportunities for Angelenos. He's an inspiration to us all, and his leadership is fearless and progressive and clear. And so, for me to have served in that capacity as well as the previous governor, I'm just grateful for the opportunity. And lastly, I just shout out to my board members. I'll miss you. I'll miss working with you. But as I retire in my field, it is nice to know that I have such colleagues as you guys. Carrying on the mantle and carrying on the work of the organization. And special shout out to Maria Cabildo. She's always been so incredibly supportive of me and supportive of my role and just the work that I've done. So just special shout out to her and to the rest of the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delilah. Much appreciated. I'm really glad you could join us. I don't
Absolutely.
know if we've got a comment from a board member, perhaps Director Russell.
Yeah, if I may. Thank you. Well, Delilah, it is a pleasure to see your face, even if only over Zoom, that we travel so far to see each other when we are really not that far away.
Yeah.
I think I have the honor of being the second longest serving director on the board at this moment with your departure. And so you have been there for me as a guide, as a great model of what fearless honesty looks like. And I think too often people are afraid to ask certain things. And I appreciate that you always have the question that needs to be asked, and you ask it in an appropriate way, but you make some people uncomfortable sometimes in the way that we are supposed to as a board. We are supposed to examine the actions in front of us with a sharp eye, and you've been a great model for that, and I've learned a lot from for me, it's been coming up on almost 10 years. So in any case, thank you so much for your service. I look forward, we can meet in Southern California,
Totally. Totally.
I will look forward to that. Thank you, Delilah.
Yeah,
Thank you for all
absolutely.
the help
Thank you.
to us and me individually.
Thank you, Director Russell. Director Cabildo.
Well, Delilah, I was just remembering just how far back we go, and I remember when you were a baby developer at Concerned Citizens of South Central LA. And I remember when I'm a long-time nonprofit developer before I did a bunch of other things. But I remember when you went over to the other side and worked for a for-profit, and I was like, oh my God, what is Delilah doing? But I want to just, one of the things you have just such a long and distinguished trajectory as a housing advocate, a housing developer. And I feel that you have always really maintained your commitment to community, to equity, to fairness. And I'm just so deeply grateful for your long career in affordable housing in LA County. And when I joined the board, you were serving as our interim chair, and you were in that role. And you were also just so incredibly welcoming and helping me orient to something very new as a board member. And so I'm just really deeply grateful for your career and your long-time commitment to community. So thank you, and I'm going to miss seeing you because I too only see you in Sacramento.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cabildo. And Director White?
Hi, Delilah. You're going to be missed. Definitely appreciate your perspective on this development when it comes to matters of the board. I echo what Director Russell says. You are not afraid to ask questions and help us think about matters from a different approach. So that's going to be missed. You also helped me become more comfortable serving in a capacity, not just here, but on subcommittees. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And you're going to be missed there as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Fred.
Thank you, Director White. So Lila, before we go, I don't know if you can see this, I'm looking at a camera, which I'm assuming is on, but I'm holding the famous CalHFA clock, which I might add that we all aspire to at the end of our time. And I'll just read this here. With sincere appreciation for your outstanding leadership, dedication, and support of affordable housing as a member of the CalHFA Board of Directors, 2013 to 2025. And it's just a small token, but really it's again our appreciation for you, all within the gift limits of the state of California. But we'll get this to you, and so whenever you pop it up on your desk, you can think of us, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you in the months and years ahead. Who knows? Maybe it's presenting a transaction. We'll never know. But it's really a pleasure working with you. I'm really glad you could join us for this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair Cervantes. Thank you, everyone, for all the kind words, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, be well. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye now. And I did mention this as sort of a period of transition. So this is the first time I'm actually sitting next to our new executive director, Tony Sergich. So thank you. And I want to
at the board.
At the board, right? We've sat together before. But before I talk on Tony for that, I want to circle back and acknowledge Rebecca Franklin again. I mentioned this at the last meeting, but because I'm so used to Rebecca, you being next to me for the past year or so. And again, I wanted to thank you for everything you've done for CalHFA, wearing two hats at the same time, and really doing an extraordinary job, really serving this organization, all its people, and fundamentally our mission. So I just don't want to leave this moment without acknowledging your contribution and just have the appreciation of me and the board for everything you've done. So thank you very much.
Was it only 2 hats? I thought there were 3 or 4 hats.
I couldn't tell. There was a big stack of them. And I just do want to say I'm really glad that, Tony, you're with us. We've had a number of conversations, interactions, and even an interview session a few weeks ago with our prospective multifamily director. And I'm looking forward to what Tony brings to this organization. He has roots with CalHFA. He's been in the housing scene with HCD, with the Controller's Office, so he's got a variety of perspectives, I think, which should be of great benefit to this organization, particularly as we really put the pedal to the metal on the strategic plan for the next 3 years, which I think is a critical period for us. We're already in the financial markets in a way we have not been since 2008, give or take. We'll talk on that later. But I kind of see CalHFA engaging in a meaningful way in our role in furthering affordable housing in California. And Tony's going to be a key part of that. The team he's building and reinforcing, again, a key part of that. So I'm super excited about what's coming up ahead of us into next year and the year beyond. So I'm really, really glad you're here and look forward to the time working with you. And I will say that he did already one immense service before this meeting started, which is that my term was also renewed by the governor's office. I need to be re-sworn in before this meeting started, otherwise I'd be sitting there back in the audience. And so I took the oath of office outside. I just want to comment on that for a second. We've taken this before, but I look at the words that are in the oath we take, which to me are really sort of awesome and sacred, in that our oath to defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and to bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of California. I mean, those are awesome words. And it just means that we're putting that service to the Constitution of our state and the United States, and really to the people of this state and our work affordable housing. I mean, that's sort of front and center. It's not a personal agenda thing. It's not about what, how do we make our lives better per se. It's about how we make the lives better for people in California by the work we do. It's really a high calling. So I wanted to thank Tony for clear the hurdle on this, but also just take these words into account for a second, because it really is a really meaningful and special thing when you step up to a position like this and you say those words. So again, I'm looking forward personally working with you all for my term ahead, and I'm looking forward to many of the exciting things we can accomplish to further the governor's mission of providing for more affordable housing and continuing that on in the future. So thank you all, and with that I will turn it over to our Executive Director.
Thank you very much, Chair Cervantes. First of all, I really appreciate you bringing that up on the oath, because it is something that we always need to keep in mind in the work that we do, why we're doing the work, and that we're doing it for the people of California. I also want to thank Director Sotelo for all of the work that she has put in over the last decade plus. I was talking to Director Russell before the meeting that I think there are 3 directors still on the board from when I left in 2018. Director Russell, Director Sotelo was, and Director Prince. So I'm excited to get back here. So in that vein, I'm really excited to get going. I want to introduce myself a little bit, very briefly. We have a busy meeting today, so I don't want to take up too much time. But first of all, I also want to echo Chair Cervantes' thank you to Rebecca Franklin for all the work that she's done over the past year, but along with her, all of the staff and leadership team that have really stepped up without having an executive director in place. So thank you all for, thank CalHFA staff for all the work that they've done to not only keep the trains running, but really grow and get us set for future success as we move forward. Secondarily, I mean, part of the work that's been done over the last decade is to really strengthen CalHFA's financial and strategic position. And I think what that has done, thanks to past executive directors, past members of staff and board, is really put us in a position to really put ourselves out there and really put our resources to work and grow in a way that California needs us to. And really show what CalHFA can do in the marketplace and how we can support Californians across the board in terms of developing and preserving housing. As part of that, we've been really working as an executive team and with staff to build out our strategic plan over the last month. I've been working really hard to get to know the executive team. I know a lot of the staff. A few of the executive team was here when I was here before, so I have some relationships, but really building that out and thinking through what our mission and vision and our goals are going to be for the next several years. And the board will be bringing that to the board early next year. So we're really going to have a robust discussion about the direction CalHFA needs to go and make sure that we're all moving in the same direction as the state needs us to. Finally, as part of all that, one of my main goals in this position is going to be to create better partnerships with our governmental partners across the state. Starts with our friends at HCD, with our TCAC and CIDLAC, but also beyond that with other state departments that work on housing either directly or in the periphery, as well as with our local partners, really building those partnerships out and finding ways to leverage the state's resources as much as possible to get as much housing built. I think our #1 goal as an agency is going to be building housing in any way that we can to support that. That may be direct subsidy sometimes, it may in other ways, it may be just supporting others to help clear some hurdles that CalHFA has an easier time of getting at than other partners will. So with all that, we'll be bringing that back to you in the coming months with a clear plan and clear ideas. But I think that's the general direction that we want to head. There are also a couple other more concrete things that I wanted to share before we get going on the rest of the agenda. First, the Cal Assist Mortgage Fund. I know that's been a big focus of what we've been trying to do. So far, we've provided assistance to more than 600 families, 80% of which are survivors of the Eden Fire in Los Angeles, and another 15% are survivors of the Palisades Fire, and some are from the rest is from other disasters around the state. So that's something that we are really working on in order to increase the use of those funds. We've made some changes to our program. In Los Angeles, we raised income limits to make sure we can help more Angelinos recover from the disasters. So really working on that. And as you've probably seen, Rebecca has been on plenty of media media hits to sort of present what we're doing and to make sure that everybody in Los Angeles and other places around the state know what's available for them as part of the recovery. Also want to talk about, we had a nice end of year event for staff at where we celebrated 37 employees who have worked for CalHFA for over 20 years, which is pretty good. Almost 20% of our workforce has been with CalHFA for over 20 years. And of those, 12 of those have worked for CalHFA for 25 years. So we presented them with a nice celebration of working for CalHFA for half of its 50-year history. So that was a fun event, and it was great to see sort of the pride that those long-term employees take in what CalHFA can do and what they've done for CalHFA. Finally, I do want to let people know that we have one of our longtime executive team members, Jennifer LaBeouf, has accepted a position in private industry, and so she's moved on. But so we're working on replacing that along with a couple other positions that we're hopefully one of them will be taken care of today, and then another position that we're looking at. With that, I'll send it back to Chair Cervantes or open it up for questions.
Yeah, let me pause here. Any questions for our Executive Director,
I had a,
Director Cabildo?
you mentioned the percent of families impacted by the wildfires in LA County, and I'm curious, like, what's the capacity? Is there still capacity for families to apply, or are we turning people away? I'm seeing a nod, so there's still capacity?
There's plenty of capacity, yes.
Okay,
and
great.
so, I mean, there are, within the limitations that we have on the income levels and the amount of assistance we can provide, that's the only limitation, but the dollars are still there to support what we need to do.
I think, like, with the Eaton fire, one of the concerns that folks in LA County have is that it was such a racially diverse community, and people are concerned with it being able to continue as a racially diverse community. Are there, we can't specifically earmark funds necessarily by race, but is there any way to, any efforts to assist families that maybe have traditionally not been able to build wealth to retain their homes?
Yeah, I mean, that's what the CalAssist program is for, is really to make sure that they can retain their homes throughout this, while they're figuring out how to rebuild or how to get settled. So, like I said, the only control on that would be income limits, which would raise significantly to make sure that we're serving as broad of a population as possible. But but there's plenty of funds there.
Okay,
so
great.
it needs it. And that qualifies will be it's available for them to come in. So that's why Rebecca has been out there trying to market this as much as possible to let people know that we have these funds and that that it's an option to help you get through some of the difficult times that are.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I make a comment?
Yes, please, Director Kurgan.
Okay, great. First of all, congratulations on your re-swearing in, and thank you for your service, Chair. And Tony, a huge congratulations on behalf of Secretary Moss. We're so excited that you accepted the role and are going to lead CalHFA as they start the next 50 years. We have so many great team members at the helm of the other parts of the organization, so we know you're in good hands, and we think the staff are in good hands too, so thank you there. I did want to comment on Rebecca in one of her 9 hats, but the CalAssist mortgage program, I will end on a question, I promise. But I just want to compliment CalHFA. I think it reflects what Tony was describing about the ability for CalHFA still to maintain its role statutorily and still be a good partner and coordinate with other government entities. And how you've shown up in disaster recovery is a great example. This is not to say that CalHFA is leading day-to-day recovery activities. They are not planned to administer CDBG disaster recovery funding if Congress and HUD grants it. That's not it. But you play a valuable role in how they're deploying their knowledge from the mortgage relief program into this. Has really been quite impressive. So from our Office of Emergency Services to coordination with our agency that Secretary Moss leads, as well as many others in state government, including HCB, we appreciated Rebecca and Chris and the way they show up. So the question is, I told you I promised, what can board members do, building on Director Cabildo's question, that there still is money available and that Rebecca is sharing the good word? How can board members continue to amplify this opportunity? Because the hallmark of what CalHFA is doing is working with local CBOs as well, knowing that government, especially now, is not always the best messenger to communities. This has been in the face of, as you mentioned, a lot going on, but also a very diverse community where there's been active raids in Los Angeles. So working with community-based organizations is a way to make sure we can get the message out. But it feels like the directors could also amplify, even on social media. Is there any way that we can help?
Yeah, and I think that's something, in terms of specifics, that's something that we can definitely look into and work with you all to help with that. But I think one of the problems with programs like these, having worked on the Keep Your Home California program after the 2008 mortgage downturn, is ensuring that people know this is real. There's, people, if people are offered what they see as free money, they may think it's a scam or something like that. So we need to make sure that we know that this is a government program that is really providing new money, and we're not asking anything of them as part of that. So I think communication along those lines from people around the table that are trusted advisors of different organizations is going to be important to help amplify that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you all. And with that, I'm going to move us to our next agenda item 4, which is a closed session. And I'm going to read this because this is given to me by council. In accordance with the Bag and Keene Open Meeting Act, the board will now go into closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 11126A1 to consider the appointment of a director of multifamily programs. So with that, I will move us into closed session, and we will resume when this portion wraps up. So we'll see you all sooner than later, or later than sooner. Call us back into session. Thank you all very much. Agenda item 5 is a report out from the closed session. I'll note that the board met in closed session as permitted under Government Code Section 11126A1 to consider the appointment of a director of multifamily programs. No deliberations or votes were conducted on any agency matters other than the duly noticed and agendized discussion. So with that, I'll move to action item 6, discussion, recommendation, and possible action to appoint and set salary for a director of multifamily programs. I'm going to turn this over to Rebecca Franklin.
Yes.
Starts off.
Thank you, Chair and members of the board.
Don't touch it.
I know. Okay, they're better. So, thank you, Chair and members of the board. I'm here today to present a recommendation to appoint Catherine Klein McFadden as CalHFA's Director of Multifamily Programs. Since the departure of Stephanie McFadden in August of this year, CalHFA had re-engaged with an executive search firm and conducted a nationwide search to replace Stephanie in the multifamily director space. What that search did result in 4 finalists in which we conducted a panel interview. One finalist was brought to an in-person panel interview and presented to the board today in closed session. Resolution 25-26 is a request to appoint Catherine Klein McFadden. The duty statement is also attached and named in the reso, as well as compensation. It is important to note that compensation does allow for room for growth as Catherine's tenure, we hope for a long tenure here. So at this time, I will turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you very much. I'd like to see if there's any questions, comments from members of the board? I'll make a comment, which is I have to thank staff for a very thorough and rigorous process, re-engaging our talent executive, reaching out to a wide range of potential candidates, all the care and effort to sort of winnow that down to a strong field. I was able to participate in one of the interviews towards the end, and I'm really delighted with the outcome of where we are now. And I really appreciate the board for the thoughtfulness and the questions asked in the closed session. I think we've got a good process here. I want to thank everyone who was involved with that, and I want to say that I think we've got a great candidate for this job, which is critical for the success of CalHFA. Any other questions, comments from the board? Dr. Cabildo.
Oh, I just wanted to echo Chair Cervantes'. I feel like it's a real coup to have someone with Catherine's breadth of experience join what's already a really high-performance team. So it's exciting to just think of where you may take us.
Thank you, Dr. Cabildo.
Mr. Chair, on behalf of the treasurer, we're just looking forward to working more with you at this point, moving forward, and appreciate your due diligence, keeping the expense down and hiring another big fat.
We're saving on business cards.
Just cross the front first name.
Thank you. Okay. Unless there's any other board comments, I'd like to open up for any public comments. If you're in person or on Zoom, each speaker will have up to 2 minutes to speak. Courtney, can you see if there's anyone who's dialing in for this?
Certainly. If any members of the public would like to make a comment, please raise your hand either virtually or in the room, and we'll call upon you. There's none at this time.
Thank you very much. So I'll now entertain a motion to approve resolution number 25-26. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Dr. White, thank you very much.
Second.
Dr. Cabildo. So we have motion made and seconded to approve resolution 2526. Courtney, can you please call the roll?
Yes, Ms. Cabildo,
Aye.
Ms. Kurgan,
Aye.
Chair Cervantes.
Aye.
Mr. Hardiman,
Aye.
Mr. Henning,
Aye.
Mr. Russell,
Aye.
Secretary Sen,
Aye.
Mr. Olmsted,
Aye.
Dr. White,
Aye.
and Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Resolution 25-26 is approved.
Terrific. Thank you all very much. Catherine, thank you. We all look forward to working with you. And all the great things that we will all accomplish together in the years ahead. So glad to have you on board. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Great. We are too.
Let's go.
Let's go. That's going to be our slogan now. So I'm going to move us to item number 7, which is the discussion recommendation of possible action to approve a permanent loan increase for the Alamo Street Apartments. This is resolution 25-27. Steve Gallagher will take us through this.
All right, might have to lean down here because I saw what happened when Rebecca moved it. But. Good morning, Chair Cervantes and members of the board. Steve Gallagher, Deputy Director of Multifamily Programs. I should start by saying thank you for approving Catherine. We're really excited to have her join the team, and I know we're going to do a lot of good things. Had the pleasure to get to know Catherine, in her other capacity, and looking forward to working with her.
And if I may, I know, Rebecca Franklin was given a lot of credit for holding down 2 jobs. Steve has been doing that for the last few months as well, so thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I obviously can't do that without my great team that I have. And I wanted to give a shout out to Kevin Brown, who's here with us today.
Yeah.
Because in the many things Kevin does for us, he also, before he was in his current role, this was his project. So I know that he's very excited to see this hopefully come to a conclusion here today. So Alamo Street Apartments, this is a new construction 271 unit family project that was awarded under the 2021 Mixed Income Program. The project is located in Simi Valley, which is in Ventura County. The developer is Pacific West Communities, who we have a lot of experience with. The construction lender and tax credit investor is U.S. Bank. The CalHFA board approved a $7 million mixed income program loan and a $48.7 million permanent loan on April 21st, 2022. After that, the permanent loan was subsequently increased to $52 million, which was a 6.8% increase, which is allowed under the authority granted to the executive director, which is less than 7%. That happened by the senior loan committee, and the executive director approved it. Since that time, and over the course of the construction period, the project has experienced some completion delays. I know this board is familiar when we gave our update at the end of the last fiscal year about some of the projects that had slipped, that we originally thought were going to close in that fiscal year, moved to this fiscal year. This is one of those projects. So the delays, increases to cost of materials, increase to the cost of the construction financing due to some extension fees, due to variable rates, been hit, relatively hard for a big project like this. And as you can see in your packet, there was a significant change and increase to the total development cost, and thus we're here today. Now, what we're really seeing is the result of inflation, because also income has gone up, right? And so we've re-underwritten this project, and it does justify the increased perm loan because of the increased income that the project will have during its operating. So the new permanent loan amount that we're recommending today is a $61 million permanent loan. It's 25% higher than the originally approved amount. But like I said, there was already an increase in the middle there to get it to 52 in between. Now, the increase to the CalHFA permanent loan will be taking care of the lion's share of the gap, of the difference, but there's also going to be a couple $1 million increase in equity, and the developer is deferring some more of their developer fee to help cover these costs. The blended perm rate of 5.15% is locked, and I know your packet says that this will close in December. This actually could close as soon as tomorrow if we get approval here today. It's ready, so it's occupied, it's leased up. Yeah, the project is in good shape, ready to close, should we get approval. So, as I mentioned, the underwriting supports it. There's no new subsidy that we're asking for. There's no increase to the developer fee. And the mixed income program loan will still pay off at maturity. No new exceptions or anything. It's really just a permanent loan increase that we're here to seek your approval on today. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I should also mention that we have John Nicholas on Zoom, I believe, or on the virtual, who was with Pacific West Community, should any members of the board have a question for the developer directly.
Great. Thank you very much. Are there any questions, comments from members of the board?
I just have a quick question, because there's a reference to conceptual rendering, but are these actual photographs?
Yeah, so in the packet on there, yeah.
Okay, so it's not conceptual, it's real. Okay, great. I just want to be sure it wasn't like an AI generated photo. Okay, wonderful. So it's done. Okay.
Okay. That's our first AI question for the day.
Yeah.
Director Williams.
You had indicated that in addition to us increasing our funding, that there would be a continuation of the deferred developers fee.
Yeah, I believe
Could
it's
you elaborate on that, or if someone's online?
So I believe, it's about $605,000 that they're deferring. So the total fee is not changing, but they're deferring that fee, and we'll collect it as part of the residual receipts.
Okay.
Thank you. Director Russell?
So two things. One is I really appreciate having photos, as I think I've mentioned that before. Love to have them in the packet when it goes out, because it instantly tells a whole story about construction type and setting, and even a conceptual rendering, it's even more important than the map, I believe, for my own understanding. The question I have is really about the previous statements about the project not having the community support. And as I often do, I use a case study here, not to press on the project in front of us, but illustrate. Do we have requirements for any kind of public outreach as an agency?
So we really depend on the locals. I mean, we always connect with the locality to ensure that they support and that noticing has happened appropriately. The developer also has to do that. I don't know, Kevin, if there's any more you want to add to that for this particular project, but we don't have separate requirements other than working with the localities.
I would also point out, Mr. Director, excuse me, Director Russell, that we also do go through an exhaustive process at Sidlac and TCAC before we, and as we review these processes. So a lot of these projects end up actually having to go through this exhaustive state process at least a couple times. Okay.
Thank you. Did you have anything?
I don't have anything to
Okay.
add.
I just want to add,
I missed being
community outreach. And so, yeah, so actual community outreach is my question, and it has to do with, we just had the good fortune to work with the city of San Diego on an inclusive public engagement guide. And even though everything we do in the affordable housing world in San Diego is by right, so many things are by right. As a city, we've been very successful in moving most housing into the by right category, so that we're not requiring it, so the process doesn't require it. And yet there's a recognition that we can create blowback by not doing some outreach. And so I just want to make sure we're sensitive to the fact at all levels of government that not only does it have implications on a project in the moment, maybe it may be immune to community actions. However, there are counter reactions, and these kind of happen at times of elections and other things where people vote. And so I just wanted to raise the sensitivity of the fact that community outreach, especially if you set appropriate expectations, is generally a good thing. This is a great project, great developer, someone we trust, someone we've worked with. We know that all of that is good. We need to know that our project, each project is not the last one this community will see, and we need to be creating an environment where subsequent projects are more openly accepted.
And I'd also like to note that with all of our, this is a HUD risk share project, and with all of our HUD risk share projects, we post it on the CalHFA website and collect public comment before it's approved. That would have happened back before the board's original approval. But yeah, so there are different steps.
Okay. Well, I would really encourage you when it's actually been published, the IPEG, they call it, Inclusive Public Engagement Guide. They make a point of talking to us and other affordable developers specifically for the point of understanding who does and who does not do actual public outreach. And it is considered an extra by some, it's considered essential to the mission by others. And it does have implications for the projects that follow. And we may have a role to play as an agency in what expectations we set with our followers. And I'll be happy to support the action today, of course.
Thank you, Director Russell.
Thank you, Director Russell. We'll take a look at that and see what we can develop as part of that as well.
Director Kurgan?
Yeah, just one question. Thanks for bringing it back and reminding us that we would see other projects like this that felt the impact of construction loan interest and tariffs and really perfect storm.
Yep.
And I noted from the 2021 project report that this project was 7%. It's on page 5 of 12 from the original report. 7% below TCAC minimums. And part of the rationale for the increase of the permanent loan is the increased income limits and therefore increased rents. So not trying to jam you right now, I know you did another full underwriting, but I'm just wondering with increased rents, additional responsibility for paying a larger perm loan, but also how are the operating costs doing? Because at some point, it's not just about increasing rent potential, but making sure that the operations are of course still lean, but that the residents are getting, requisite services and things and support to be able to keep them stable. So just wanting to make sure that you all took a look at how additional proceeds would also be reinvested in the project.
Yes. So I know that the operating costs have increased as well, but we also increased the reserves. I don't know if there's anything you would like to say about the operating costs. But
The operating costs we verify using a current appraisal and based on market. So the NOI we used for underwriting the perm loan increase was actually a little bit less than what the appraisal recommended because the expenses were a bit higher.
Thank you. Which would make sense to me for thinking about expenses rising on the construction side. I want to make sure that we're not taking a more scrutinous.
Yeah, we try not.
Sorry.
Yeah,
No.
we try not to approve a project that has an NOI that's higher than what the appraisal recommends.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Thank you. Any other questions? We'll see it. Oh? Yeah. question on the board? No.
The developer has their hand up, so we're
Oh.
going to.
Okay, that's your point.
Yeah, I would just add, hi, everyone. This is John Nicholas, and met with a number of you before. And Steve and Kevin, thank you for allowing us to be here today as well. I would just add to Kevin's comments as well. We have another 240 units going into Simi Valley, so that'll help as well with being able to spread costs between our projects to ensure that we are doing our best to stick to our budgeted expenses. So that scale will help. And to add further, there's additional comment earlier about the city in general wanting further development, and so this is just an indication as well. The need is there, the demand is there, and we're trying to help meet that demand, and it'll just help with the overall costs with this existing project.
Thanks, John.
Thank you very much. Unless there's any other comments, questions from the board, Courtney, if you could see if there's any public comment on this, in which case I'd ask individuals to limit their time for 2 minutes, please.
Certainly, if any members of the public would like to make a comment, please raise your hand virtually or here in the room. There's none at this time.
Okay, thank you. And unless there's any other questions, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve resolution.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Cabildo. Motion made and seconded to approve resolution 25-27. Courtney, can you please call the roll?
Yes, Ms. Cabildo?
Aye.
Chair Cervantes?
Aye.
Ms. Kurgan?
Aye.
Mr. Hardeman?
Aye.
Mr. Henning?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Secretary Sen?
Aye.
Mr. Olmsted?
Aye.
Dr. White?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Resolution 25-27 is approved.
Great. Thank you all very much, and let's get this one closed.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item 8. To discussion, recommendation, possible action to approve a contract for capital improvements at 520 Capitol Mall. And our Finance Director, Erwin Tam, will lead us in this discussion.
Thank you, Chair Cervantes, and good morning. I think it's still morning, members of the board. I'm here to present Resolution 25-28. There's a very brief board memo that sort of prefaces this resolution, and at the August board meeting, the Board of Directors was informed of the agency's potential offer for the property at 520 Capitol Mall, and at that time we disclosed a potential capital needs, especially related to the elevator repair. The purpose of this resolution is to approve a contract not to exceed $1.4 million to meet those capital needs that were identified to the board. Again, this is to exercise the board's authority to approve contracts over $1 million in value. We came up with the number 1.4 million as an abundance of caution in terms of the potential cost of the contract for these repairs. I know that's been a very brief overview of this resolution, but I'm happy to entertain any questions that the board may have.
Great, and I'll preface this by, with this respective property, this is a known. We knew this going in, it was disclosed that the elevator should be an issue. There's like funds set up for it. My understanding is that we think this thing actually could maybe run under $1 million.
Yeah, there's potential, and again, this is, back in my days in the private sector, one of the things we look out for is thresholds of approval. The board has $1 million threshold, and we don't want something to come in front of us that is $990,000, and it looks like we are not being transparent to members of the public and to the board of directors representing the public. So again, this is again a abundance of caution that we are exercising as members of staff.
Yeah, and I'll notice the chair really appreciate that approach. We're just putting it out there, even though this may be under that million threshold. I also appreciate the contingency, because I don't want to have this board to come back at this again for an elevator repair project.
The board has other important items in front of it.
We've got a few other things, so thank you. But with that, are there any questions, comments from members of the board on this particular item? I don't see any hands raised. Courtney, can you see if there's any public comment or input? In which case, I'd ask individuals to keep it to 2 minutes, please.
Certainly, if any members of the public would like to make a comment, please raise your hand either virtually or in person. There's none at this time.
Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 25-28.
So moved.
Thank you, Director
Second.
Russell. Was that?
Over here.
Oh, great. Thank you, Director Hardeman. Motion made and seconded to approve Resolution 25-28. Courtney, can you please call the roll?
Yes, Ms. Cabildo?
Aye.
Chair Cervantes?
Aye.
Ms. Kurgan?
Aye.
Mr. Hardeman?
Aye.
Mr. Henning?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Secretary Sin?
Aye.
Mr. Olmsted?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Resolution 25-28 is approved.
Okay, get those elevators fixed. Thank
We'll be
you.
back shortly
Great. Look for a good
on a
ride.
different topic.
If you can make them go extra fast, that'd be kind of fun. Thank you. Okay, item 9, update of the State Leadership Accountability Act report. Kelly Masson, our Director of Enterprise Risk Management and Special Initiatives, will walk us through this item. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Chair Cervantes. I can officially say good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Kelly Madsen. I'm the Director of Enterprise Risk Management and Compliance here at CalHFA. Today we'll be talking about the State Leadership Accountability Act, also known as the SLAE report. This presentation will provide you with a high-level background on what the SLAE report is and how we approach preparing it. And the full report will be made available to the board in the first quarter of the next calendar year. For the purposes of today's presentation, we'll be focusing on the top enterprise risks that we identified as a result of preparing this report. We'll also dive deep into how we're mitigating those risks and how we'll be monitoring those risks going forward. So the State Leadership Accountability Act report is a mandated report submitted to our partners at the Department of Finance at the end of every odd year. It's publicly available at the California State Library website. The SLAE report is an enterprise-wide risk assessment, but it's more than just a risk assessment. It's an accounting of our control environment as an agency. We highlight the top risks of the agency and also look at control effectiveness. So what are we doing to ensure that those risks don't prohibit us from achieving our strategic and business goals? For the control environment itself, we look at and account for the different committees and the way that CalHFA is set up and the way we decide how to appropriately manage risk. Next, we'll get into the process of the SLAE report itself on the next slide. So the process for preparing this report begins with a comprehensive risk assessment initiated through an anonymous survey that's distributed to both executive and operational leaders. The survey invites candid input on both internal and external factors that could impact our ability to achieve our strategic goals. The anonymity ensures honest feedback and broad participation. And importantly, we look well beyond CalHFA's walls, considering external forces like market conditions and interest rates. And while we can't control these risks, we can control our response to the risks, the mitigating efforts that we do, and how we're able to adjust as those risks grow and adjust accordingly. After we collect survey responses, we analyze the data to identify our top risks. Then our full leadership team convenes to review the findings end to end, discussing emerging trends and aligning on priorities. I'd like to give due credit to Ms. Rebecca Franklin and now Director Sertich, who have been really committed to creating a culture where we really all own these risks together. We all own the mitigants, and we're all on one team looking at that control environment. So once we've identified the top risks, we meet in cross-functional teams to gather the mitigants and controls and assess those. Are they working? Are they effective? Where can we improve? And do we have any planned enhancements? My team then compiles the findings into a formal report, which is submitted to the Department of Finance by December 31st at the end of this year. Again, that full report will be made available to the board in the first quarter of next calendar year. So that's the process that we've undertaken to prepare the report for this year. Now I'll walk you through the results of our analysis and the key risks that we've identified in this cycle. So since our last report in 2023, the prioritization of risks has shifted. We've also identified a new risk, and one previously reported risk, data security, is no longer appearing on our top risk list. That change does not signal reduced vigilance around data security. Rather, it reflects the significant progress we've made in strengthening our security posture. While data security risks remain ever present, our team's consensus is that both the likelihood of occurrence and the potential impact have been substantially reduced. And this improvement is largely due to the strategic leadership of our Chief Information Officer, Mr. Ashish Kumar, and the exceptional work of our IT division. Over the past 2 years, we've had no reportable security incidents. Our California Department of Technology audit score ranks amongst the highest of our peer agencies, which is an achievement that reflects our commitment to excellence in this area. We've invested in advanced security tools, matured our policies and implementation practices, and taken deliberate steps to elevate our overall security posture. Next month, the Audit and Risk Committee will receive a comprehensive briefing detailing those efforts, so there'll be more to come on that. But turning our attention back to this year's top risks, economic volatility and workforce development and talent acquisition remain key concerns, but their priority levels have shifted since the last time that we completed this report. And the newly identified risk for this year is around the complex and dynamic nature of laws and regulations. So we'll explore each of these risks and the mitigation strategies in place and how we're tracking the success of those strategies in the following slides. So in terms of economic volatility, changing market conditions continue to pose a significant risk with the potential to impact program participation and housing needs. Factors such as interest rates, housing affordability, and the availability of resources directly influence our ability to produce units and provide homes. In the multifamily space, market volatility, particularly around rising construction costs, has a direct effect on our production capacity. So as a result, we've identified economic volatility as the top risk to our agency. It's really one of the most influential factors in determining our ability to fulfill CalHFA's core mission, which is delivering affordable housing solutions for Californians. And while we can't control external forces like interest rates or market shifts, we again can control our response to that. And our strongest mitigation is the agility and the responsiveness of our team. This team consistently demonstrates flexibility in adapting to market conditions. We evaluate our programs in real time, adjust our term sheets, and develop alternative offerings to meet evolving needs. Our ability to collaborate quickly and effectively with government partners to design and implement innovative solutions is another key strength in mitigating economic volatility. And to ensure these mitigation strategies remain effective, we're closely monitoring our production metrics, default rates, and market trends. And this allows us to proactively adjust our approach as conditions evolve. Turning now to workforce development and talent acquisition, this remains a top risk and has been consistently identified in the last several slave cycles. And while we've made meaningful progress in stabilizing our workforce, competition for qualified professionals in the affordable housing and finance space continues to be a challenge. These are highly specialized skill sets that are essential to us fulfilling our mission. We also recognize the critical importance of succession planning and preserving institutional knowledge, especially in divisions anticipating significant retirements. We're fortunate to have many long-serving, dedicated staff members, as Director Sertich referenced in his opening comments, that 20% of our workforce here at CalHFA has been with us for over 20 years. Ensuring that their expertise is passed on to the next generation is a key priority for us. So to address this risk, we've implemented targeted strategies for recruitment and retention, including providing ongoing job shadowing, structured mentoring, continuous training, and ensuring that procedure manuals are in place and updated regularly. Many of these strategies have also shown up as initiatives in our strategic plan. We're actively monitoring key workforce metrics, including position fill rates, turnover, and vacancy levels, to assess the effectiveness of these strategies and again, make timely adjustments. And this brings us to the newly identified risk for this cycle, which is the complex and dynamic nature of laws and regulations. So frequent legislative and policy changes at the state and federal levels can introduce uncertainty that affects CalHFA's operations, program priorities, funding availability, and strategic direction. Conflicting or overlapping requirements across federal, state, and local jurisdictions can delay projects, it can increase costs, and it can create barriers to scaling our programs effectively. Our Office of General Counsel plays a critical role in navigating this complexity. Their deep institutional knowledge, low turnover, and subject matter expertise allows us to interpret and respond to regulatory changes with speed and precision. Additionally, CalHFA's Director of Legislation, Ms. Meji Tabar, is instrumental in maintaining open communication with policymakers and industry partners, ensuring we receive early insights into proposed legislation and can assess potential impacts before bills advance. We also recognize that many of our partners operate within highly regulated environments, and as such, we maintain a structured collaboration with these partners to ensure alignment where appropriate, supporting our ability to stay informed about regulatory developments, understanding our partners' constraints, and maintaining consistency in program implementation. This strong foundation built on expertise, collaboration, and proactive engagement enables early identification, interpretation, and response to legislative and policy changes that could impact our mission and operations. And given our critical dependencies on these roles and partnerships, we'll be closely monitoring turnover rates and any shifts in our ability to remain actively engaged in key policy conversations. This vigilance helps ensure we maintain influence, foresight, and alignment in a rapidly evolving regulatory landscape. So with a clear understanding of our top risks for this SLAY cycle, we now have the opportunity to use this information to inform and strengthen our strategic direction. First, as we continue to develop our next 3-year strategic plan, I encourage the board to consider how these risks align with our long-term goals. A strong strategic plan should not only reflect the risks that we face, but it should actively address them through targeted initiatives and resource alignment. Second, there's an opportunity to leverage this risk assessment to guide the work of the Audit and Risk Management Committee. The committees of the board exist to carry out the work of the board, and your strategic direction is essential in shaping its focus and priorities. If there are specific areas of concern or interest based on today's presentation, we welcome your input to ensure the committee's work plan is aligned with the board's vision and oversight responsibilities. With that, I'd like to thank you for your continued leadership and partnership in this space and welcome any questions you may have.
Great. Thank you very much for that presentation. I'd like to see if there's any questions, comments from the board on this topic. Yes, Director Russell.
Yes, so in particular, I would be interested in our exposure to, our portfolio exposure with PSH, given the continued erosion of the absolute value of vouchers. And then secondly, the recent situation with the continuum of care, NOFOs, and reallocation of priorities. Narrowing to the question of, is there a significant risk, and have you looked at that risk in particular in our portfolio?
Yeah, I think that question is really reflective of exactly why our leadership and executive team has identified the complex and dynamic nature of these laws and regulations and policy shifts as a top risk for us and something we need to actively monitor. We're working closely alongside the Chief Deputy, our multifamily team, and hopefully going forward, our new Director of Multifamily, to respond in real time as we're made aware or catch wind of policy shifts along those lines. I did have an opportunity to talk with our multifamily team about this, and when they heard the news that this was potentially coming down the line, they were able to look into their portfolio and complete an analysis within a day to understand our exposure. In specific terms, we have approximately 800 active projects. 200-ish of them receive some sort of local operating funding, which is where those federal dollars are flowing through, and only 17 of them are within that continuum of care funding. So again, 17 projects out of 800. So I guess that specifically gets to your question, but more importantly, what I'm hoping to demonstrate to the board is that our team is really actively monitoring and engaging anything that would shift or adjust our program and operations at the federal level, and at all levels really, and working diligently to respond in real time and share that information out with the team. And we'd be happy to continue to keep the board informed in general or on specific questions that you might have.
Let me just say that I'm very, very impressed with the response that you've just provided and the thoughtfulness, obviously, that's gone into this process. That illustrates. And I think that, for CalHFA, this is great for the sector as a whole. There's obviously more exposure. And to the extent that we have blended PSH and standard TCAC funded projects that are at all income levels, and we've been asked many times to fold in PSH, there are other risks that are out there. But let me just return to the point of today, which is your answer assures me that you are doing a diligent job of looking at the types of risks that are out there, and I really appreciate that response.
Thank you very much, Director Russell.
Thank you, Director Russell. Other questions, comments? You know, I read this and I can appreciate why this changing landscape and laws and regulations has moved up into the top 3. Let's hope it doesn't become number 1 down the line. I'm reading between the lines. This is really what's going on with the federal government, I would take it.
Yeah, absolutely. I will add, though, that from a state level perspective, the California legislature in recent years, obviously in response to the housing crisis, has become far more interested in this space. And so even in talking with our general counsel, you know, this focus is very welcome, but it also means that more statutes are coming in, even at the state level. So, you know, compared to historical levels, it's just an increase in the amount of volume coming our way. It's a great thing, it's just a lot, and it requires the team to remain nimble and diligent in monitoring any of those changes that come up and being able to accurately interpret how they might impact our agency.
Yeah, I think nimble is probably the operating word there, which has been something said in this organization, which I really appreciate. It's going to be, I think, really critical in the environment we're in. So I'm glad you guys are looking at this area. Did you have a comment? Yeah, the other thing I guess I'd say is that I think we're obviously not the only housing finance agency. There's like 50 odd of them in this country. There's the CalHFA, and you know, to the extent we're sort of like collaborate and learn from our partners in other states who are facing similar issues, that's probably a plus for us too, I think, and I'm sure you guys are all over that. So unless there's any other board comment, I want to see if there's any public comments or questions. Courtney, can you please open up the box and see if there's someone with a comment?
If any members of the public would like to make a comment, please raise your hand either virtually or here in the room. There's none at this time.
Great, thank you very much. And thank you very much too, appreciate that. Okay, number 10 is we're going to have a presentation from the Turner Center on their Turner Center report, I should say, the market for CalHFA of homebuyer subordinate financing products. And this is, I'm going to have Ellen Martin lead this discussion. We're looking forward to learning here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Good afternoon. Ellen Martin, Director of Home Ownership. So just as a little bit of background for this item and this presentation, CalHFA engaged with the Turner Center and the California Policy Lab to gain a better standard, in an effort to gain a better understanding of the market for low and moderate income Californians that are eligible for CalHFA's home ownership programs. So what we really wanted to know was not only the total size of that market as kind of an upper limit on our total production goals, but we also wanted to understand the demographic and geographic composition of those potential CalHFA borrowers. So the purpose of the study is really to help us understand not only how many people qualify for first-time homebuyer assistance and who they are, but also how we can design current and future programs to really better calibrate to that demand. It also, importantly, helps us identify where there might be other interventions that could be appropriate in order to help sort of grow and guide that pool of mortgage-ready borrowers that could benefit from our assistance. So I do want to stipulate that this is a fairly limited scope. We did not look at housing supply. We didn't look at financial resources that are available to provide down payment assistance. What we're really trying to do with this is kind of the initial piece is to start to build a body of research that really helps to inform the landscape of homeownership policy development over the long term. So with that, I would like to introduce Dustin Swander, who is the primary author of this work and who will be providing his findings to the board today. I'll give you Dustin's bio because it's impressive. Dustin Swander is a PhD candidate in the UC Berkeley Economics Department. His dissertation research focuses on housing finance and more broadly, the economics of public policy. Dustin is supported by a National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship, and his research has been recognized and supported by several Berkeley research centers, including the Turner Center for Housing Innovation, the California Policy Lab, the Fisher Center for Real Estate and Urban Economics, and the Opportunity Lab Place-Based Policy Initiative. Before graduate school, Dustin worked at Princeton University, the U.S. Treasury Department, and the Brookings Institution. He received his bachelor's degree, magna cum laude, from Harvard University. With that, Dustin, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you so much for including me on the agenda. I'm really pleased. Oh, I wonder if I could grab the slides.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks also Ellen for the introduction. So today I'm presenting, Today I'm presenting the results of the market study, which is joint work with my colleagues at Berkeley. Carolina Reed directs the Turner Center for Housing Innovation, and Evan White is the executive director of the California Policy Lab, which is a joint initiative of UC Berkeley and UCLA. So we've conducted a market study. Ellen has already said the purpose of the study is to estimate the market size for CalHFA subordinate financing products as well as its composition. So what are the demographics of the potential people who could benefit from CalHFA products, and where are they located? We focus in the study on 3 CalHFA subordinate financing programs. So these are the My Home Assistance Program, the ZIP Zero Interest Program, and the Dream for All Shared Appreciation Loan Program. And our approach in this study is to identify borrowers who we think are eligible based on credit score requirements and previous homeownership experience as well as income, using first a credit bureau data source covering all California consumers' credit scores, as well as some public data that's going to give us a sense of the income distribution among renters in different areas. So this table is from the report. I'm not going to go over a full description of My Home, ZIP, and Dream for All, but I've highlighted a few rows that show just how we're going to get leverage. So of course, all 3 of these products feature credit score restrictions, and those are things that we're going to be able to observe in the credit bureau data that will help us estimate the size of the market. In addition, there are restrictions on previous homeownership experience. So people generally need to be first-time home buyers, and for Dream for All, they need to be first-generation home buyers in order to benefit from the subordinate financing products. And that's also going to be something that we're going to be able to observe. And then the credit bureau loan is not going to enable us to observe people's income, but of course income is a consideration in eligibility, and so we're going to use some auxiliary data to apply the income limits for the programs, as well as estimate folks who are able to afford a mortgage payment. So our primary data source that we're going to use for the study is called the University of California Consumer Credit Panel. It's a resource that's maintained by the California Policy Lab, and it's comprised of de-identified individual credit records. Importantly, it covers 100% of individuals with credit histories who've lived in California at any time between 2004 and present. So this is big data, which was the buzzword before AI. The data are pretty high frequency, so they're updated quarterly, but a key limitation of credit bureau data is that we can't observe incomes, and so we're going to bring in some data from the US Census Bureau and HMDA to estimate the income distribution among renters and apply these income eligibility restrictions. So our baseline methodology for the study can be boiled down to starting with a pool of everyone who's an active consumer credit user in California, and then successively applying the criteria for the subordinate financing programs in order to arrive at a group who is eligible and potentially able to use the subordinate financing products. So our first step is to identify all the California consumers in the data who are active in the consumer credit market as of 2024 Q4. Then we impose the restriction that they're of prime home buying age. We're going to define that for the purpose of the study as ranging from 25 to 55. Of course, that's a fairly broad range, and 55 might be on the later end. But California is a high-cost state, and sometimes there are folks who transition to homeownership for the first time, even at a pretty late age. Following that, we're going to apply the credit score restrictions for the products. So 640 for My Home and ZIP, and 680 for the Dream for All program. And then the last step that we're going to implement purely with the credit data is look at folks' experience in the home ownership market. So for the purpose of all 3 products, one needs to be a first-time home buyer, and that involves, from CalHFA's perspective, not having an ownership interest in your home for the past 3 years. So in the data, we're able to see whether people had an open mortgage in the past 3 years, and then we're going to use that as our proxy for homeownership. For the Dream for All program, in addition, you need to be a first-generation homebuyer. So one important component of that is that you've had no ownership interest in your home for the past 7 years, and we're able to proxy that in the data with whether you've had an open mortgage. Something that we're going to miss out on in the credit bureau data, that's a limitation of the study, is that the other component of first-generation homebuyers is that your parent didn't own a home. And so we don't have the parent-child linkages in the data. You should think of the numbers that we're going to come up with, therefore, as kind of upper bounds. Great. So what does this methodology give? We start with 17.6 million active consumer credit users in California. Imposing the age restriction brings us down to about 10 million. And then the more substantive numbers are the following. So imposing the credit score requirements for My Home and Zip yields a reduction to 8.1 million borrowers. And finally, imposing the restriction that folks have not owned a home or had a mortgage in the past 3 years gets us to 4.6 million who, based on their credit records alone, could be eligible for My Home or Zip. Doing the analogous exercise for the Dream for All program, we arrive at 3.9 million consumers who have credit scores that are high enough to qualify for Dream for All, and then 3.6 million who also meet the previous home ownership requirement. Now, these are individual level numbers, so this is the number of individuals who could benefit from the program. You might be additionally interested in how many home purchases could be facilitated by the program, accounting for the fact that often people buy homes with another borrower. So we do a back of the envelope calculation based on HMDA records. We divide these numbers by 1.54, which is the average number of the average number of borrowers for a home purchase, and then we arrive at this 3 million potential My Home and Zip facilitated home purchases number, as well as 2.3 million potential Dream for All purchases. But we're not done, so we haven't done anything as of yet to account for the fact that there are income limits for these programs, and there may be some folks who are in our credit bureau data but who earn too much to qualify. It could also be the case that folks are in the data but don't earn enough to afford a monthly mortgage payment. So of course, CalHFA's subordinate financing programs are great, but they're not so great that they can take the place of being able to make a monthly payment. So in the interest of accounting for those things, we exclude a representative share of renters in each county who do not meet the income limits for that county, and who we estimate could not afford a monthly mortgage payment. So our proxy for being able to afford a monthly mortgage payment is having income above the 10th percentile of FHA homebuyers' income in that county. So to give an example, using numbers from Alameda County, where I usually work. So in Alameda County, 92% of renters aged 25 to 55 have income below the maximum income for My Home and Zip, and 86% fall below the Dream for All restriction. And so to pair off the folks who earn too much from our previous estimates of 4.6 and 3.6 million, we're going to exclude in Alameda County 8% of renters from our My Home and Zip estimates, and 14% of renters from our Dream for All estimates. We're going to do a similar exercise to exclude folks who earn below the 10th percentile FHA income, to account for the fact that some people can't afford monthly payments. And so we're going to go county by county for every county in California, and we're going to do this top and bottom trimming, and that's going to result in a lower estimate. What does that give? So this shows the results. The baseline results are in kind of a blue-gray, and then the orange and yellow results are after trimming off the top and the bottom. So you see that we have, after trimming off the top, about 4.2 million eligible and able to use My Home and Zip, and about 3.2 for Dream for All. And then after trimming off the bottom, that's the much more dramatic reduction. So there are lots of folks who fit in the eligibility category, but we don't think they could actually afford a monthly payment and therefore would be able to use the products. So that gets us lower. Now, we've talked about the market size, but I expect that many folks are interested in the composition of the market as well. And so we're going to use demographic records from the Credit Bureau data. So this shows the composition of the My Home and Zip eligibility pool and the Dream for All eligibility pool relative to all Californian heads of households as of 2023. So what are the findings? You see that Black and non-Hispanic white borrowers are slightly underrepresented in the eligibility pools relative to their share of the California heads of household. These are actually for opposite reasons. So Black households are going to be underrepresented for two reasons. First, there are lots of credit invisibles in the California Black population, so there are lots of folks who don't have any credit access whatsoever. This is kind of a well-documented fact, and there's academic literature that shows that this is the result of historical discrimination in the housing and labor market. It's also going to be true that among folks with credit records in the Black community, credit scores are on average lower, and this also, we're sure, based on academic literature, reflects a history of disadvantage. Non-Hispanic white eligibility is lower for a totally different reason. So non-Hispanic white homeownership rates are relatively high. And recall that in order to be eligible for these programs, you need to be a first-time home buyer. So having already purchased a home disqualifies you from the eligibility pool. In contrast, Asian and Pacific Island borrowers are going to be somewhat overrepresented, and that reflects higher average credit scores in that group and relatively low rates of homeownership, whereas Hispanic and Latino borrowers are roughly proportionally represented. Moving on to the geographic composition, so what we're seeing here is that relative to, so this plot retains kind of the earlier structure where the leftmost bar is all active consumers aged 25 to 55 in California, and then the moving right, you have the My Home and Zip eligibility distribution and the Dream for All eligibility distribution. So Bay Area folks are overrepresented in the subordinate financing eligible groups, and we think that this reflects higher average credit scores and incomes, but folks not being able to afford a home in those areas. Chair Cervantes.
Query, what's on the y-axis?
Good. So this is the share in each group. So to read off the Bay Area, for instance, the blue most bar, so 20% of all active borrowers aged 25 to 55 are located in the Bay Area. But in orange, about 23% of My Home and Zip eligible borrowers are located in the Bay Area. And so that's how you see the overrepresentation. Does that clear up the answer?
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I had a couple of other questions. I was kind of trying to hold off a little bit because you were going through your presentation at a good rate, but I imagine capital means everywhere from the Bay Area north?
So capital is around the Sacramento area, you should think. So
then what encapsulates Mendocino, because that seems like that's coast?
Yeah, the capital is Sacramento, Yolo, Placer, and El Dorado counties.
And then what's Northern California?
That is rural. It's similar to the TCAP.
It's just in rural California. And then are there other counties in rural California that are not Northern California?
Yes, it goes along sort of the eastern boundary.
And Ellen, just to confirm, these are the same geographic regions as are in the tax credit allocation committee's regions? Okay, thank you.
these are the Dream for All regions as well, the allocation regions, if that helps. Thank you for that clarifying question.
And I was just trying to figure out, we all have all sorts of designations for these places.
That's great. So yes, so as I was saying, I think the overrepresentation of eligible borrowers in the Bay Area reflects pretty high incomes and credit scores, but low housing affordability. So there are lots of folks who just haven't transitioned to homeownership yet. In contrast, you're seeing underrepresentation of the Inland Empire and the Central Valley. These are areas where lots of folks with good credit scores and high incomes can, and moderate or even low incomes, can afford homeownership, and that's going to disqualify them from being in the eligibility pool. Great. So this summarizes what I've said already. I suspect that overrepresentation of the eligibility pool in the high-cost area reflects kind of limited supply in those areas. So there are lots of folks who, on paper, meet the eligibility criteria, but the affordability is very low. Some analysis that we have in progress of the Dream for All program we see that people who randomly get Dream for All offers, compared to folks who do not get Dream for All offers by random chance, are likely to move out of high-cost areas and into more affordable areas. Great, so this summarizes all the findings that I've shown you so far. In terms of market size, we think using the credit records alone, we think up to 4.6 million could be eligible for My Home and Zip, and 3.6 million could be eligible for Dream for All. But refining those estimates with income data, we think the numbers are probably closer to 1.6 million for My Home Zip and 1.1 million for Dream for All. You see the black renters are underrepresented in the eligibility pools, probably both reflecting income and credit constraints and not in the report, but a legacy of discrimination. Something I'll add here is that in practice, CalHFA tends to do a better job reaching out to those communities, and so that reflects lots of effort on all of your parts. Hispanic or Latino borrowers are proportionally represented, and Asian and Pacific Islander borrowers are overrepresented, and the market seems to be concentrated in the most populous and expensive regions. I think I've been transparent about the study limitations, but just to caveat, can't observe income directly in the consumer credit data that we use, and so we have to bring in complementary data. We don't have data on parental homeownership, and so that's a limitation. Race and ethnicity are imputed in the credit bureau data, and so that's also a limitation. In the county-based affordability assumption is based on FHA borrowers who buy in each given county. But of course, we see that lots of people move from more expensive to less expensive counties, and so that's another limitation, but I think we've been thoughtful in trying to get around those as best we can. If you like this, I hope you're going to be excited about the next step in our research partnership. So some work in progress is that the random lottery allocation of Dream for All loans is really helpful scientifically in evaluating the effect of getting down payment assistance. So to use an analogy, when people test the effectiveness of drugs, they randomly allocate some people to receive the actual drug, and they randomly assign other people to a placebo. And because of random assignment, that any differences in the treatment and control group that evolve are because of the drug, because the only difference between the two groups ex ante was random chance. So the random allocation of Dream for All loans facilitates an analogous analysis. And so some preliminary findings that we've uncovered are that a Dream for All voucher offer increases homeownership by over 45 percentage points relative to the control group 4 quarters after money was allocated, and there appear to be no adverse effects on lines of credit or other credit outcomes. But there's much more to come on this, and I'm excited to update you guys in the future. I'll now thank you for your attention and open up for any questions or comments.
Thank you very much. I'd like to see this. I'm sure there's a few questions from the board. I'll start with Dr. Gabino.
Oh, thank you so much for this. It's so interesting. I was just curious what opportunities are in the data to disaggregate data. I know that the economic Pacific Islanders tend to have a different economic disadvantage than other Asian American population, and then also the American Indian, Alaska Native. So I'm just curious if that's just really hard data to get to, and why. I guess one is is there an opportunity to disaggregate for Pacific Islander, and then what's the data like for AIAN?
Thank you for that question. So the primary data source, as I was discussing, was the University of California Consumer Credit Panel. And so we're limited by using their race and ethnicity labels. So their race and ethnicity labels are based on this algorithm called the Bayesian Improved Surname and Geography algorithm that assigns probabilistic measures of race and ethnicity. And so they're not able to disaggregate within the Asian and Pacific Islander category, and actually they don't do any disaggregation of the American Indian and Alaska Native populations, so that's a key limitation. Of course, I know that the California Housing Finance Agency in its program does collect more data on that for administrative purposes when they're giving out loans. And so, but I want to recognize that the Asian Pacific Islander population are not a monolith when it comes to affordability, and also to recognize that the American Indian and Alaska Native population are an important population to focus on from a policy perspective. So unfortunately, the data doesn't give us an opportunity to disaggregate amongst these groups, but I think it's a great subject for future research, potentially with different data.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lowe. Director Williams.
So as we endeavor to get a sense of how large the market is, we understand that we have limited resources and that even the demand for all of the programs there seems to be an over subscription to the fund. So at the end of this study, what do we hope to be able to use this data for? We already know that there is a huge demand across all these areas and ethnicities that you've identified. But the reality is we'll never be able to meet the demand given the limited resources that we have. So I'm trying to understand, it's almost like the housing element, where you're gonna end up with these astronomical numbers of units that have to be produced, but the reality is it's not realistic to think that we'll be able to satisfy that. So I'm trying to just get an understanding of how we're going to use this data in relationship to the limited resources that we have, when we already know that we're oversubscribed almost in every program.
Thank you so much for the question, Director Williams. I really appreciate it. I'll start, and then if Dustin has anything that he might add on from his vantage point, then we can do that. I think there's sort of any number of really interesting outcomes that we can take from the analysis, acknowledging that we are, of course, resource constrained and we're probably not going to be able to ever, meet the full demand. But in terms of looking at the actual composition of folks that are eligible for our loans and where they are, I think it reveals some really interesting truths in terms of who is currently eligible for our programs, who is mortgage ready, and what other interventions might be appropriate to think about how can we affect the pipeline of mortgage ready individuals, and is that something that we can use to help meet some of our larger policy goals in terms of who our programs reach. So I think that's one opportunity that comes from this data. I also think that it's informative with respect to policies that we might have relative to the geographic composition of where our borrowers are. There's always a lot of tension in terms of where our programs tend to help the most. So as you guys will remember from the first round of Dream for All and the My Home program, you tend to see our assistance gravitating towards the central areas of the state, right? You tend to see it going towards Sacramento, the Sacramento region, Central Valley, Inland Empire. And this helps really, I think, to tell the story of why, because of the unique challenges in the coastal area, despite even greater demand in those areas and more disproportionate demand in those areas, we do still see our assistance sort of gravitating to the more cost-effective and inventory-rich regions of the state, right? So I think that helps to sort of buttress some of the policy decisions that we've made in the past with particular respect to the Dream for All geographic set-asides, where we made sure that we established the policy such that borrowers could purchase in any region in which they were income eligible, right? And so I think that sort of underscores why it's important to acknowledge the potential need in a very supply-constrained market to allow our borrowers to find the best situation for themselves, but also helps us to understand the dynamics of supply and demand within those subregions, which is something that we should be thinking about on a going forward basis as we're looking at sort of the larger arena and paradigm of homeownership interventions that can help borrowers that will qualify for our program.
Thank you.
Director Russell?
Yes, thank you. And I really appreciate that you're walking through that study so coherently and with a lot of complexity. That it was very clear, and I appreciate that. I also want to underscore that the numbers are staggering, right? We're looking at if we were to subsidize at $10,000 with 1.4 million people needing this, for every 10,000 we subsidize, that's $14 billion. If we're doing 20,000, it's $28 billion. It really, I think you're finding about supply constraints are critical, and so this informs our policy. You know, we just had a very interesting press conference yesterday with the mayor, Todd Gloria, talking about the programs called Neighborhood Homes for All of Us, which is talking about subdividing single-family lots in existing suburban neighborhoods at moderate densities for row homes, townhomes, and other relatively small-scale buildings that are gentle density. So I would suggest that if we are ever going to make real progress on these numbers, we have to vastly increase the supply of housing through that side and look at supply side, producer side subsidies, loan products. I'm not sure what this gets back to Dr. White's Innovations Committee. How do we create the financial mechanisms that help us produce housing that maybe the traditional market doesn't recognize? And at that point, our money that we put into these programs is going to go so much further toward getting families into these houses. The actual necessary subsidy will be less, the opportunities will grow. And so I just don't want to, I really want to just emphasize though, this producer side, we have to create more, and we have to create more at price points that people can afford. And so the row homes and townhomes are slab on grade. They're cheaper than anything else to produce, and we need a lot of them. And so I appreciate your data absolutely buttresses that argument. I think if I think this needs to be shared so people are understanding as the legislature is looking at where they're putting money. We need money to go toward production of for sale housing. And as an affordable housing guy, there's some of my members who would just like pull their hair out. But I will tell you that not every one of my members, most of my nonprofit members were present at this press conference, eagerly supporting like MAC Project and Casa Familiar, the Chicano Federation, recognizing that their service populations are never going to have that opportunity for a home unless we create a lot more of them. So I appreciate your contributions to this discussion, and again, the clarity with which you walked through the data and your process was admirable. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Russell. Other questions? Director Henning?
I just had a couple detailed questions, but one in particular was we talked about these programs are ready for first-time home buyers in particular. You sort of redefine that as no mortgage in the past 3 years or past 7 years. Those aren't the same, and so why did we get to those limitations?
So, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think it's, yeah, those just reflect the policies that the products have, but I can speak to exactly the origin of those policies.
So the distinction is a first-time home buyer is someone who has not owned a home or owned their primary residence or lived in a home owned by their spouse in the last 3 years. And so that's pretty much the federal standard definition for a first-time home buyer. The 7 years was specific to a first-generation borrower, the definition of which was established for purposes of the Dream for All Phase 2.
In statute?
What was that?
Was that in statute or regulation?
That was actually, it was part of the term sheet for Dream for All Phase 2, and established as part of the eligibility parameters for that program.
I was just trying to figure out if we did it or the legislature did it.
So we did that based on the eligibility parameters established for the Dream for All program. And the logic of the 7 years is based on the availability of data related to home ownership and when you can see essentially a foreclosure coming off of somebody's public records. So it had to do with sort of the QA/QC process on the first generation piece.
And then we also talked about credit ratings. Did you use a particular bureau? Did you use FICO? Did you use, there's a lot of different services that produce a rating.
So this is the Vantage score, I believe.
Advantage.
Yeah.
Is there a particular reason you decided to use that one different from FICO or some of the others?
It's a matter of convenience. So that's the credit score that we're able to observe in the UCCCP.
Other questions? So I have an observation. The first question, the last slide I think is really intriguing with respect to preliminary evidence. Dream for All voucher increases homeownership by over 45 percentage groups against the control group, which I thought was rather striking.
Yes.
I mean, it was a big takeaway. Wish we had more money to plow into that. I guess the other question, so is there any way with respect to My Home Zip to make an analogous observation, or is it we don't have the control group to be able to get there? Is that why we're silent on that?
I think it's a good subject for further research. I think there may be a way to, of course, usually in economics, we don't have experiments that are as clean as the Dream for All experiment, or I won't call it an experiment. Of course, it was a matter of fairness, actually, that the random allocation occurred. But from my perspective as a scientist, it's useful to use it as an experiment. But often we can find methods to make inferences about the effects of policies in the absence of an experiment. So I think it's something that we've kind of talked about, and I think it's something that we're thinking about.
Yeah, because I agree with Director Russell in terms of the need to build more supply. But I'm wondering, like, these programs kind of give a little something for a household to get in the door. And I'm wondering, are there various tipping points where at X per household you enable home ownership? I mean, is it linear, or do you have any sense of what's a number that gets us to a certain threshold?
We were just discussing this over coffee, so we share your curiosity about sort of what exactly is that tipping point, what is sort of the most efficient intervention that you can offer on the down payment assistance side, such that you can help the most people for the most efficient use of limited resources. So I don't have an answer for you, and I don't think Dustin has an answer for you yet.
I was really hoping you would.
But we share your curiosity on that point.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was kind of coming away with, like, if you're trying to construct something like at a threshold of X, can you get 100,000 more households in, or to use as a basis to sort of craft something or program or enhance something we already have.
You could really get me going on this, and I think that's why Ellen jumped in.
It's only 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I think at this point I would just say that we're curious. I think at this point I just.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think that, the 20%, kind of to Director Hennig's questions on what was in the regulation for Dream for All, 20% was modeled, but, that was set for us. And so I appreciate this line of questioning for us to consider how to further tailor and continue the conversation with the legislature about kind of a place between a traditional DPA and more of a 20%.
Yeah, this could be something would be useful in the process.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is that Director Sim?
Thank you very much for this information. I am curious about the next angle with which you investigate some of this data, or what research questions come up next, because kind of along the same line of thinking, when you think about the 45 percentage point increase, so meaning someone can get an offer for a Dream for All voucher, they don't necessarily use the Dream for All voucher. Instead, they are now maybe thinking about or preparing themselves to become homeowners. What we found in our home loan program at the California Department of Veterans Affairs is sometimes we're working with a potential borrower for up to a year, because we're working to provide information to them and education on how to become more creditworthy. They're really in a mindset of continuing to save money for down payments or look at other potential lending options or down payment assistance options. So what I think that shows is kind of what Director Williams was saying and Director Russell were saying, where what are we going to do with this information going forward? Are we going to dig further into why it is that these individuals become more successful because they receive a voucher? Is it because historically we're developing a pipeline potentially for people to become more creditworthy, more lendable, or just giving them education on what products are out there? We have to build more housing, we have to make more units available, but we also have to look at how we can assist better with getting people to be in a lendable situation and to become the people who are able to afford some of these different products for home ownership. It's not just how we're gonna reduce some of our thresholds or build more housing, it's also how we can assist them to become ready.
Good point.
Thank you.
So just to respond quickly, I absolutely agree. I think that's a big threshold finding here in terms of looking at the composition of our eligible borrowers, is to think about, okay, what does this tell us in terms of the types of programs and education and other interventions that we can offer, and where should we be targeting those interventions? So I think that's a really important element, and so thank you for bringing it up.
If I may, I think to that point, your question and your response, Ellen, this is in line with what Secretary Moss has been saying about how we make California more livable for more people. So really appreciate the education note and appreciate how much growth CalHFA has shown in this regard. You know, that my time in working with the staff and with the board, there was a more narrow set of data collected and discussed. And so I've really appreciated your openness to working with the amazing cohort of UC researchers. This is a growing body of academics who focus on housing in our state. This is not where we were in 2012 at all. You know, so just in a weird number to put forward, but just saying there weren't housing institutions that were in our UCs that were really focused on the planning school. And so I hadn't met you before, but it's such a pleasure to see your work, to think that it's not just the numbers, but you are already thinking about the equity components of what these numbers mean. Thank you for bringing this presentation to us. And I think here, similar to what's in my notes and hearing it from other directors, there's interest in seeing how we grow this body of research to help make data-informed decisions.
Great. Any other comments, questions to the board? Courtney, can you see if there's any public comment or input on this?
If any members of the public would like to make a comment, please raise your hand either virtually or here in the room. There's none at this time.
So my observation is that when you come to defend your dissertation, you're going to completely nail your oral. It's very well spoken, it's well presented, it's very clear, very complex, but you walked us through it. Once I understood what the x-axis was. The y-axis.
The y-axis.
The y-axis, yeah. I am always asking why. So thank you both so much for this. This is super helpful. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Okay, so we are going to move from strength to strength here. We'll talk agenda item 11, which is the capital markets bond summary. We are the California Housing Finance Agency, and I'd like to turn this over to our Director of Financing, Erwin Tan, please.
Thank you, Chair Cervantes. Good afternoon, members of the board. I feel a little dethroned here. Usually I'm the person that has the most numbers per minute, so I'll try to go through this very quickly to try to reclaim my crown here. So I'll be brief. I know this is the last informational item in front of the board today. So I wanted to start off with sort of like, where have we been? And I know after joining the agency in 2021, we asked the board to approve new. Go to if I get the slide here. There we are. So we asked the board to approve new financing policies in early 2022, and then we issued our first underwriter RFQ since 2004 in that year as well. 2023 marked our first issuance of multifamily revenue bonds, and 2025 marked our first issuance of single-family revenue bonds underneath new indentures. So on the next page, you'll just see the takeaway here. 2025 was the largest year of on-balance sheet issuance of bonds for CalHFA since the Great Recession in 2008, supporting both single-family and multifamily programs. And that doesn't even include the $300 million line of credit with two separate banks that supports our bond recycling program. So it's really exciting for the agency to be back, in the capital markets in such a large amount. But what does this mean for CalHFA? In terms of better execution, it means that the agency has performed $18 million better than the status quo in terms of better execution for the agency. It means that our hedges for interest rates, our hedges on interest rates using interest rate swaps have generated to date $36 million, and we anticipate $55 million overall. And this again is used to downsize the amounts of bonds issued by the agency. The total value of which are aggregate changes that we've executed within the Financing and Fiscal Services Division for the agency is the present value of about $100 million, and that's equal to about 2.5 years of operating expenses for CalHFA. I I will say I wasn't here in the October board meeting when we recognized members of my team. I'm here again today with members of the financing and fiscal services team. We've won three NCSJ awards over the past 3 years, and as we celebrate our 50th anniversary, we've won more awards in the past 3 years than we have in the prior 47 in the financing divisions. So with that, I'm going to conclude my remarks. Happy to have any questions for you.
Okay.
So, the record will state that you concluded on mic.
But yes, I would, again, I wanted to keep it high level in terms of, and Albert and Robin will kind of discuss our other successful. It's a more direct and more detailed approach to our 2025 Series B bonds, supporting our multifamily lending programs.
Great. I'm going to look for board members with questions or comments. Director Williams.
I can always come back too.
Okay. So Ted, you know that was a drop the mic, leave the room comment.
I'm still around. I'll still be here.
Okay. But it's just been amazing to see what has occurred in such a short period of time, even when interest rates were very high. The strategy of when we brought bonds to the market, some of that was just sheer genius, the other was just sheer luck. But either way, it all worked in our favor, and it has set our agency apart from so many. You mentioned how there are so many housing finance agencies, but they are not of the caliber of CalHFA. And I just, with all the team here, just again want to acknowledge what a tremendous accomplishment this is. Sometimes we just hear about accomplishments and they're so frequent that we get used to them. But I am never unaware of the amount of work and then the impact to the agency and how you have set us on a financial path, even in a volatile market that is really positioning us to be able to provide resources, to loan, but also setting us up for long-term financial stability in a very volatile environment. We talk about those issues that we're looking at as far as regulations and how that can impact our agency. This is one that really is phenomenal. So I just, again, want to acknowledge and say thank you to the entire team and under your leadership for what we've been able to accomplish.
Thank you, Director. I will say that our financial strength and including our highest ratings ever allows us to deploy financial resources to meet the moment.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? A question and a comment. The first one, is there a recap of the transaction you wanted to touch on?
Yes, that's the second half of this presentation. I'm calling up.
My spider sense tells me we have underwriters in the room. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mentioned underwriter RFQ, and that makes everybody kind of crawl out from everywhere else. Yeah. But yes, I think again to talk about specifically about the 2025 Series B bonds.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Maybe I have one question for you actually, which is kudos on greatest amount of our entry into the capital markets is 08. Just and you may not know the answer to the same, but just out of curiosity, what was our biggest year?
I will get back to you on that.
Yeah,
I think it's probably one of the, between 06 and 08, we were doing a tremendous amount of volume, especially in the single family lending side.
Yeah.
And I don't have an exact amount, but my guess is it's in excess of $2 billion.
Yeah,
okay,
I think
something
so.
to work on. All right, thank you.
Work in progress.
All right. So we'll talk about the bond deal now.
Yes. I've also asked Albert and Robin to keep their remarks short, just to understand the time constraints by members of the board.
Okay, thank you so much.
So Erwin told me to keep it short, so before dinner time, I'll be done.
Much appreciated.
Well, thank you again, Chair Cervantes, for inviting both of us here today to talk about the presentation. And Congratulations, Executive Director Surgis, in your appointment. I'm very glad to see the agency continue to blossom. My name is Albert Long, Director of RBC Capital Markets, and
my name is Robin Redford. I'm a Senior Managing Director at Ramirez & Company.
so today we're going to talk about the transaction. We'll keep it brief, but overall the punchline is it went very, very well.
Mark,
Can somebody
It went better than the slides did, I think.
or just advance the slides.
Oh, no, okay, now it's gone. It's a little bit of a lag. So to highlight Erwin's point, this is the this marked the fourth transaction for CalHFA, fourth multifamily transaction for CalHFA. It financed 6 projects, $146 million of bond proceeds, and created 935 units. As a reminder, this is a construction to perm. So these loans were done 2, 3, 4 years ago, and now they've converted, and CalHFA has taken them into the market, issuing the bonds to finance these permanent loans through the municipal markets. The transaction happened in October. This also marks the second transaction that CalHFA has done this year in multifamily. The prior deals were done basically one a year. I know everybody loves pictures, so I tried no renderings this time, but at least I have a map of California. So this gives you at least an idea of where these projects are located. So there's actually one in Sacramento, and it goes all the way down to San Diego. And it gives you a little bit of an idea of the type of loans that they were. All of them were FHA risk share, all also supported by the MIP program. And it gives you a little bit of an idea of just the AMI breakout kind of aggregated for this particular transaction. Follow to the next page. This is sort of what Erwin was talking about, a real growth story, honestly. And I remember really in 2022 helping to develop the multifamily indenture with CalHFA. And from that point until today, we're basically at a $500 million indenture, right? The first deal is about 85 million, the second deal near around the same amount, a little bit bigger, and then now we're at total outstanding amount of about $500 million. So what does that mean in terms of projects? We financed 22 projects across this time period and generated over 3,000 units. So pretty remarkable during that time period where there was no indenture to begin with, and now this indenture has grown to be quite robust and obviously continue to grow over the coming years as more projects get converted and are financed through the bond markets. So that's the transaction in terms of just the high-level project names and size amounts. I'll turn over to Robin, just give a backdrop of how the pricing kind of started and what the rate environment was and how the bond flows worked during that period of time.
Okay, great. Thank you, Albert. So describing the interest rate background for the agency's transaction on page 5, we focus on the municipal bond industry's benchmark index, known as Municipal Market Data, or MMD, which provides a AAA yield curve ranging from years 1 to years 30, and that's at the top of the page. It's showing you the 5-year, the 10-year, and the 30-year MMD, showing you where the last 3 transactions priced. And you can see that the overall, we were in a lower rate environment than the pricing earlier in the year, and the spread there between 30-year and 10-year was wider, and in what we say a steepening yield curve there. The table on the bottom left reiterates this data, showing that the year-to-date change in the 30-year being a positive 32 basis points compared to negative for the 5 and 10-year. And so in the week of our pricing, the Federal Reserve was set to meet. The market expected a rate cut. CalHFA positioned itself to price in advance of that meeting to avoid the potential volatility or anything around that. And you can see that in the chart at the top right, rates ticked up actually right after that, and we priced right before that uptick. In the chart in the bottom right gives a backdrop that tells you that the Bloomberg surveyed more rate cuts to come, and the market expects that. On the next page, page 6, okay, we show the context of the 2 pricings. in terms of overall volume. The significance of the timing of the last transaction was to try to have as much flexibility as possible, given the set of projects, and not be beholden to a year-end rush. And the bottom two charts shows inflows and outflows of municipal funds, which generally indicate relative demand. At the time of our pricing, flows were relatively stable, with a slight inflow of the week. And lastly, on page 7, the week itself featured a number of other housing deals, but the agency was bringing the only significant multifamily transaction of the week. In California overall, it was a relatively light week of $1.2 billion in issuance. Housing overall was rather heavy, more than $1 billion. RBC was involved in all but one of the deals that were pricing, and Ramirez and Morgan Stanley and other co-managers were involved in all the others as well, and so we had significantly good eyesight for the agency. So for this relatively heavy calendar, HFA's multifamily deal was unique, and in the upper right corner we show that the calendar highlighting the FOMC meeting and our pricing occurring the day prior. It was originally contemplated as a 2-day pricing, and as I turn it back over to Albert, he'll explain the day's events.
Yeah, I mean, so overall, this was very successful pricing, as I was kind of alluding to earlier, even though it was a very heavy calendar. And generally speaking, we've seen record issuance of housing paper this year alone. And so there is always sort of a traffic jam of transactions kind of coming to the market. And $1 billion of issuance is not a atypical issuance amount per week this past year. And so despite that, we had 34 institutional and SMA accounts kind of participate in this transaction. Over $200 million of orders come in, which translates about 2x oversubscription. Oversubscription means that there's 2 times the amount of orders than there are bonds available to sell. And one of the nice benefits that we're able to capture in the CalHFA's paper is that what we have in that chart is just the absolute coupons or yields for the comparable agencies that were priced in that same week. And when you look at the average yields compared to the average yields or the yields of CalHFA priced about 15 to 30 basis points tighter or lower in yield relative to other issuers. And so that kind of shows the demonstration of how much hunger there is, I guess, for CalHFA paper relative to the other issuances. And obviously the Cal specialty state benefit really kicks in for CalHFA, for tax-exempt bonds, that is. Just going on the next page, there are a lot of numbers here, but this is just about credit spreads. And so that's the spread over the MMD, which Robin mentioned earlier. You'll generally see since 2024 to now, credit spreads on CalHFA paper has generally declined. And what that really means is that more and more investors are getting comfortable with the paper, right? The first deals in 23, I know during that period of time, there were many investors just kind of surprised that CalHFA was even back in the market. And the question really came up was, well, is this the one and only one in 23, or are we going to see more deals come through? Because investors, they have portfolio managers, portfolio analysts, they take time to review credits. And so, by 2025, 4 issuances have come, you're getting more investors involved. They understand there's actually a pipeline now, willing to put their capital into the market and put in order to buy CalHFA bonds. So generally speaking, this was a very strong transaction in terms of reception. I think in the first hour, this deal was basically sold during the order period. So in terms of subscription, this kind of gives you an idea. All the dotted bars at the bottom show the par amount that was available per maturity. And then what we did was we highlighted really 3 categories: California retail, national retail, and institutional. You'll see that California retail was incredibly responsive to this transaction. Everything that's light blue sort of exceeds that dotted square per maturity, meaning that there were more orders coming in for the California retail than there were bonds available. So again, it's just insatiable demand for CalHFA bonds. And then for the bigger term bonds, which are the bonds on the right side of the page, which are usually chunkier, longer duration, usually targeted to institutional investors. Even then, we had an exceeding amount of institutional investors participate in this transaction. So yeah, overall, this was a very good deal. As Robin mentioned, we did accelerate. I mean, generally, we accelerated the whole process of drafting the documents, going to the market, in ahead of the Fed, in ahead of Thanksgiving, and just the traffic jam of so many other transactions coming to the market. And since we had such robust demand in the first hour or two of this transaction, we were able to wrap it up in one day and eliminate any risk of the Fed and any surprise comments that Powell might have had. So that was the transaction. So we open the floor for any questions you might have.
Yeah, thank you. And I love that chart you got there, which is now covered by the legal disclosure. There you go.
Gotta show that.
Yeah, gotta show that too. I appreciate you not reading that. Are there any questions, comments from members of the board? I think this is a great outcome, and I want to go back to this one because it's like the amount of retail. Is this like what I would call real retail, or is it the professional retail also, or what's that? What's in that?
It's both, yeah. There is definitely a combination of professional retail and mom and pop retail. I would say professional retail is the predominant retail in this particular transaction, which is becoming more of the norm, honestly.
Okay.
But yeah, it mainly is professional retail.
And you had 34 institutions, or like what? How many?
34 institutional and SMA accounts,
Okay.
so a combination of both. Yeah.
Okay, that's a really robust marketing.
It was, and again, compared to other transactions that were competing for investor attention, I think a lot of investors looked at this deal first because you just don't see enough California housing paper.
Yeah, and one other question, if you'll indulge me, you remarked that as we've been in the market more and have gone beyond the being perceived as a potential one and done market participant, the credit spreads have kind of narrowed. Could you talk further on that? It's like, I don't know if you can quantify that, or what's your sense as to how much of a benefit, if you will, that we get by being perceived as a regular player in the housing finance market?
I mean, just based on the last 3 deals, it's been, call it 5 basis points at most, right? Through like the timeline of about a year.
Okay.
Honestly, it can go the other way if you issue too much. Then there might be a credit spread penalty because you have too much paper on the market. But right now, it's sort of like a nice spot where you are issuing enough bonds where, again, investors are starting to see you regularly coming in the market, and again, gives them an opportunity to actually do the credit work because they don't want to do the credit work, put it in order, and not be allocated, and they don't know when the next time a CalHFA transaction will come about.
Yep.
There is some complexity there because the state is putting out other housing bonds, whether in their general offerings. And so this happened to happen at a really good time in the market. But we just had a UC sale recently, also did very well. We had a housing bond sale earlier this year. So.
Yeah, good point. Thank you.
And we generally tend to look at the California calendar relative to where we're pricing bonds, just in case that we're not competing against other Cal issuers at the same time.
I'm glad to hear that. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Courtney, can you see if there's any public comment or question on this, in which case we ask folks to limit it to 2 minutes, please?
If any members of the public would like to make a comment, please raise your hand virtually or here in person. There's none at this time.
Great. Albert, Robin, thank you both so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Well done. And now we move on to agenda item 12, which are informational written reports. These are the items in your packet for review. We have staff here who can answer questions if folks have them. Otherwise, we'll let you peruse them at your leisure. Any comments or questions on the informational items of the board packet? I don't see any. I don't think, question to council, you don't need any public comment on this part, do we? Or should I ask for public comment on? Thank you. That's a great answer. Thank you so much. And now we're on other board matters, which are items that we are not agendized, we really can't discuss, but individuals might want to bring up at a subsequent meeting. I'd like to see if there's anything out there people would want to put out. Don't see anything, so we'll move on that. And then lastly, item 14, which is a chance for members of the public to make a comment on anything with respect to that's on their mind with respect to us, the housing of the world. Courtney, if you could please open it up.
If any members of the public would like to make a comment, please raise your hand virtually or here in the room. There's none at this time.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Well, with that, my calendar had us wrapping up at 1:45. We're actually ahead of schedule. Fancy that. And with that, meeting is adjourned.